Hey guys, Ashok here. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can get Enderal Forgotten Stories up and running in VR using a tool called Wabbajack. If you're not familiar with Enderal, Enderal is a standalone total conversion mod for Skyrim. It was made by a company called Sure AI. The game is set in its own universe. It has no connection with the Elder Scrolls, and the only connection it has with Skyrim is both games just coincidentally are running off of the same engine. This game was originally made for Pancake only. It's not officially a VR game, and there's no way to add VR to the game directly. However, thanks to a very talented VR modder named Sasa2727, it's now possible to use the Enderal game files to mod the entire campaign inside of Skyrim VR. So there's two ways that you can do this. The first method is to simply download Mod Organizer 2 and then manually download all the required Skyrim VR and Enderal mods. But this is a rather time-consuming process, so there's a second option that's quite a bit easier. You can use a tool called Wabbajack, which will download a pre-configured version of Mod Organizer 2 from the cloud, which is pre-configured with all the mods you need to play Enderal in VR, so you can jump right into the game with just a single click. The only downside to using Wabbajack versus setting up Mod Organizer 2 on your own is that Wabbajack does require a Nexus Premium account, although the cheapest way to do this is you can just sign up on nexusmods.com for just 1 month, and once you have the game downloaded and installed, you can just cancel your membership. So again, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set everything up using Wabbajack. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to steampowered.com. All right, so you're going to want to navigate first to Enderal Forgotten Stories. You do not need to install Enderal Forgotten Stories, but you do need the game in your Steam library. Once that's done, you're going to want to go ahead and search for Skyrim VR. And you're going to want to go ahead and install a clean copy of Skyrim VR. Again, it's important that you have a clean copy installed. If you have other mods inside of your Skyrim VR installation folder, Enderal is probably not going to work for you. Next, you're going to want to go to nexusmods.com and go ahead and log in with a premium account. And once you're signed in, you can go to wabbajack.org and you're going to go ahead and download Wabbajack. All right, once you have Wabbajack downloaded, you are going to want to go to github.com/ashok0, and then go ahead and go to the Enderal VR Essentials nightly repository. This is where I have the newest version of my Wabbajack release. I've just released version 2.0. This has a lot of new features that were not in my last release from 2021. I've added support for Plank. I've added new NPC animations. I've given the enemies Dark Souls style animations, which I think look a lot more immersive in VR. I've also added support for Spell Siphon combat. I've added Sakaru combat. This adds really cool impact sounds and visual effects during melee combat. And I've added support for parallax textures along with new textures for Arc, which give the game a really, really nice visual overhaul, along with new cube maps, which give you really nice looking reflections in water. So anyhow, you're going to want to go ahead and go to the releases page, and then under assets, go ahead and download the newest version of my Wabbajack. Once the files are done downloading, go back to your downloads folder, and you're going to want to move wabbajack.exe to a new location that is outside of your Windows desktop. So I went ahead and I just hit cut on wabbajack.exe, and then I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm just going to put it in a new folder called Wabbajack in my games folder here. It just has to be somewhere in your computer, outside of your Windows desktop. Okay, I'm just going to paste the file here, and then I'm going to run it. This is going to install Wabbajack to this folder. All right, once Wabbajack pops up, go ahead and close out of the program. Now you're going to want to go back to your downloads folder, and you want to run the .wabbajack file. So go ahead and double click it. When this window comes up, go ahead and hit the 3 dots for installation location. Go ahead and select this blank Enderal VR folder that we just created. And it's going to autofill the download location for games, Enderal VR downloads. Just leave that at default. And then you're going to go ahead and click the Run button. Also, if you've already installed the Wabbajack, and if I've updated, the Wabbajack since its initial release, you can simply tick Overwrite Installation, and then it will just update your Enderal VR folder with any mods that have been added, to the Wabbajack release. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Run, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to download uh, Enderal, pre-configured for VR directly from Nexus Mods. This could take a couple hours, depending on your internet connection. All right, once the installation is complete, there's still one more thing you need to do before you can actually play the game. You want to go to the Enderal VR folder that we just installed the game to. So you're going to go to your C drive. In this case, again, I put the folder in my games folder, and then we installed everything in this Enderal VR folder here. Now there's a folder called Game Folder Files. You want to navigate here, take everything inside of game folder files, highlight everything, and then copy all these files to your Skyrim VR folder in Steam. So go to C, Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and then Skyrim VR. You need to paste all these files in here, and again, go ahead and replace anything that's already pre-existing. As a general rule, you always want to install your Skyrim mods through a mod manager, as it's the only really safe way to mod the game. But there are a handful of files that do have to be installed directly in Skyrim VR under Steam Apps. So once that's done, you're all set to play the game. So there is an extra step though that you may want to do if you're using an Oculus Quest 2. You don't need to worry about this if you're using like an Index, but if you're using an Oculus headset, I would recommend going to gitlab.com/Zenixion/OpenVR, which is the official page for Open Composite. This is a really cool mod which allows you to run both Skyrim and Enderal as native Oculus apps, so you can play the game in VR without all the overhead of Steam VR, which is going to give you much better performance. So go ahead and scroll down. There's a link for the 64-bit DLL, so go ahead and hit 64-bit, and we're going to just go ahead and move this file to our Steam installation folder. So again, go back to Program Files, x86, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and then Skyrim VR, and then go ahead and paste this and overwrite any pre-existing files. Again, this is just going to allow you to play the game as a native Oculus game. You won't have all the overhead of Steam VR running in the background, but you can skip this step if you're not using an Oculus headset. So having said all that, we're now good to go for playing the game. So go back to your games folder and then your Enderal VR folder, or whatever folder you decided to install the game to, and run modorganizer.exe. And you'll see that we have a copy of Mod Organizer, which is pre-configured with all of the mods that you need to play Enderal in VR. Now this is configured with the assumption that you have installed the game on your C drive. If you've installed it on a different drive, you may need to make an additional change. You'd have to go to Tools, and then Executables. And then under SKSE, as you can see, there's this file here called sksevrloader.exe. It's currently pointed to the C drive, but again, if you put this on, say, like a D drive, for example, you may need to change your drive letter here in your executables page. Okay. Now, I do want to go over some optional mods that I have included that are disabled by default, but you may choose to enable them. I have a mod called Enable TAA-FX. This will turn TAA on, which I would highly recommend not doing. Some people like TAA because it helps reduce shimmer in VR. Unfortunately, TAA does not work well at all with Skyrim VR. It breaks parallax textures, and this mod list does use parallax textures. So just beware, if you turn this on, it will cause graphical glitches anywhere that there are parallax textures being used. If you really don't like shimmer, a better way to get rid of shimmer is to just go back to your Skyrim folder under Steam. So again, if you go to Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Skyrim VR. If you come here and if you delete this file, let's see, where is it? Yeah, dxgi.dll. If you delete that file, I'm going to undo that, but that's going to disable cast sharpening, which it'll make the game look a bit less crisp, but it will also help reduce shimmer. So again, if you really don't like the shimmer in the game, you're better off just removing dxgi.dll versus turning off TAA. I also have an optional mod called Clear HUD VR. It hides things like health and magicka and stamina bars. I've got a mod called Vanilla HUD Size for VR. This will make the HUD much larger. I personally don't like it. I think it looks a little bit too immersion breaking to have a huge HUD covering your view in VR. But I know some people, if you don't have really good eyesight, it could be helpful for some. Also, if you're using an Index or a Rift or a Windows Mixed Reality headset, you may want to turn on these VRIK bindings for Rift Index and WMR controllers. I've also added a kind of a fun mod. It's called equipable, female-only tattoos. It allows you to apply body paint, to your VRIK body. It works really well in VR. I turned it off by default because it doesn't work with male characters, but if you're playing a female, it's kind of a fun mod. If you have arachnophobia, there are two different mods here to get rid of spiders. This first mod, it will replace all spiders with wolves and bears. The second version will replace all spiders and beetles with other creatures like wolves and bears. So again, use only one of these, but they're kind of nice if you don't like spiders or other creepy crawling type critters. And finally, there's a story mode mod here, which will make the game quite a bit easier. If you just want to play the game just for the story, if you don't want to get all bogged down in combat, this will greatly reduce the difficulty of the game. Also, the latest version of my Wabbajack release has 3 different profiles now. The first profile here, Enderal VR Essentials, this is just going to give you an experience that's pretty in line with the vanilla game, just modified for VR. I've also made another profile, Enderal VR Essentials Enderal Gameplay Overhaul. This profile is going to enable all these EGO mods. They increase the game's difficulty if you want more of a challenge. The combat's harder, the enemies have improved artificial intelligence. It'll definitely give you more of a challenge. But again, if you just want to play the game for the story, you may not want to enable that. Again, there's also a Somnium overhaul profile that I've added. What this does is it enables a new set of mods that were created by a studio called Scenic Route Games. And what they've done is they have overhauled and replaced pretty much every single piece of armor and clothing in the game to give Enderal a huge facelift so that it kind of is shed of all the rust of Skyrim, and it has a little bit more of a modernized look. I really love the Somnium overhaul. I just feel like it gives the game a really nice visual facelift that really adds to the immersion in VR. My personal recommendation is probably to use the Somnium overhaul. Just note that this Somnium overhaul is built off of EGO, which also increases the difficulty. However, if you want to use all the Somnium textures, but if you don't like having harder difficulty, again, you can turn on this story mode with Somnium, and what that will do is it'll disable all these mods from effectively running. You can't just turn these off, as they're required for the Somnium mods to kick in, but you can turn on story mode. It'll basically disable these EGO mods, and you can play the game with reduced difficulty. Also, under dynamic mods, I've added two different versions of Dyndulat output. What these mods do is they give you really detailed LODs. So when you're looking at things in the distance, everything on the horizon has much better detail than the vanilla game. It really adds a lot to the immersion in VR. The difference between the performance and quality version is the quality version uses really beautiful looking 3D trees in the distance. They look really good. However, I've noticed even on my RTX 3070, the quality version does give me a drop of upwards of 10 frames per second in really large open areas. Um, so I personally don't find it worth the performance hit. I would maybe try it if you're running a 3080 or 3090, and anything under than that, I'd really recommend just sticking with performance. Having said all that, I think we're finally ready to jump into the game. I'm going to start by going over just how you can adjust all the settings for Enderal VR, and I'm also going to go ahead and I'll show you how these different profiles differ in game. So I'm going to start by just showing you the vanilla uh, Enderal VR Essentials profile. Also, I just want to note too again for settings in Mod Organizer, if you go to Tools and then Tool Plugins, we have an INI editor, and there are two different INI files that can be used. For changing settings in the game. These are all pre-configured by me, so you really shouldn't have to make any adjustments. I've tried to set these up to give you a good experience in VR. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the game just by, again, making sure you have SKSE selected in this drop-down bar, and then go ahead and hit run. All right, we are now in game. I'm going to go ahead and start a new campaign by hitting Explore Enderal. All right, now you'll notice right off the bat, if I look down, we have, no hands, we have no body. That's totally normal. You won't have an avatar until you complete the character creation wizard. I'm gonna run up ahead a little bit. I want to show you just some of the features that we can take advantage of in VR with, all the VR mods. So I'm gonna go to the top of the hill, and we're gonna meet the daddy character. Alright, so one thing that's really cool is in VR, in Skyrim and Enderal, the games will take advantage of your headset microphone for dialogue, so you can talk to characters by just reciting the dialogue out loud. So if I try to talk to Daddy here...
Oh, hey there. I didn't see you coming.
So, how did it go?
Did you find it?
What is this place, Daddy? Where are we?
Where are we? We're at home, silly. Where else would we be? Just mommy, sister, you and me. Now tell me, how did it go? Did you find it?
So I was able to talk to Daddy by just reciting the dialogue. I didn't have to touch any buttons on my controller, which I think feels really, really immersive in VR. Now there is one thing that you should be aware of. If you hit the right grip button on your VR controller, you'll see that it exits the dialogue menu. Now there's a bug in the VR mod where if you exit the dialogue tree while an NPC is talking to you, it can, on occasion, soft lock your saved game, where you can no longer re-enter the dialogue tree to continue the game. And there's no fix for this. Just as a general rule, make sure that you never hit the grip button and exit dialogue when an NPC is talking to you in the game. Another really nasty bug that you should be aware of is when you get to a town called Duneville, you will probably get stuck where your character is not able to move. If that happens, what you need to do is push the console button or the tilde button on your keyboard, and then when the console window comes up, type player set scale space 1 and hit enter, and that will fix the glitch and allow your character to continue in Duneville when you get there. Another thing that you should be aware of is there are no cutscenes in the VR version of Enderal. You'll hear the cutscenes playing, but you won't get any video. You'll just hear the audio. It's really not a big problem. There's only 3 cutscenes in the entire game. You can just watch them on YouTube. It's really not that big of a deal. And another thing I just want to show you guys is how you can set up the in-game settings. If you go to the System tab here, under Settings, most of these settings are pre-configured for you with this Wabbajack release. You shouldn't have to change anything. I do want to note that if you go to the object fade under VR Performance, this is the biggest setting in game that will affect performance. I find that if you take it all the way down to 0, it gives you a pretty big performance boost, even on my RTX 3070. Unfortunately, as much as I do love the performance benefit from dropping your object fade to 0, it also adds a lot of pop-ins. Pop-ins, just walking around, you'll see objects just kind of popping in while you're walking around in an outdoor environment, which is kind of immersion breaking. I find kind of a sweet spot is kind of somewhere around like 40%, but again, if you have a lower end graphics card, you can just dial back this object fade, and you'll buy yourself a lot of performance there. Also, the mods themselves can be configured from the mod configuration setting. So if you go to the MCM section of the menu, you'll see all of the major mods that have been installed. They can all be configured from here. The Wabbajack release pre-configures all this stuff for you. Now, the way this works is these mods will auto-configure themselves after you complete the character creation wizard. Now, let's say that you're using a pre-existing save game and you don't actually run through the character creation wizard. These mods will not auto-configure themselves. You can configure them manually by selecting MCM Recorder, and then under this page, go ahead and click this recording, and then hit your grip button to exit the menu, and you'll get a prompt. Would you like to play this recording? Go ahead and hit run recording, and then hit OK, and then just wait for the recording to finish. And then when it is finished, click OK. All right, next I'm just going to go ahead and jump ahead in the game here. I'm going to show you guys what the weapons and outfits look like with the default Enderal VR profile and Mod Organizer 2. All right, here we are in the city of Ark using the default Mod Organizer 2 profile. I'm just going to go ahead and walk around the city, and you can get a sense of what the NPC outfits look like artistically with the default profile selected.
Walk blessed.
Yes? What are you doing here?
so many strange faces. Well, isn't it nice?
Alright, so as you can see, most of the NPC outfits, they look, pretty similar to the same outfits you would see in Skyrim. It doesn't really feel like, we've left, the world of, the Elder Scrolls. Also, if I grab my sword here, I have an iron sword. It looks cool, but again, it does feel like, we're still playing a pretty standard fantasy game. So anyways, now I'm going to go ahead and load up a saved game with the Somnium profile selected, and you can see, how the game differs artistically between the two profiles. Alright guys, here we are in the city of Ark. I'm going to go ahead and just walk around the city, and you'll be able to see how, with the Somnium profile active, every piece of clothing has been overhauled, for every NPC.
Walk blessed.
Also, not only have the NPC outfits been overhauled, but if you grab a melee weapon, you'll see that even swords have been totally overhauled, to give the game a really nice, unique flair, to give the game a different style from Skyrim. So this is now a katana. All in all, I really like the Somnium mod. I think it really does a great job giving the game just a distinctive feel. So I would highly recommend using it. Also, there's one more thing I want to show you before I end this video. I'm going to go through some of the different VR mechanics that we can take advantage of using all of the VR mods that we have installed. So one thing I'd like to show you is with all of our VR mods, you can use the magic to configure your calibration height. So if we select the VRIK calibration power here, we can go ahead and cast this spell just by pressing the grip button on our right VR controller, and we can now configure our headset height. Once you have that done, I would recommend going back to Magic and unequipping that spell so you're not constantly inadvertently resetting your player height. Another thing that's really neat is with VRIK, all of our weapons are holstered to us. I can grab my sword from my side here. I can even throw it using the weapon throw mod, just by flinging my hand forward and releasing the grip buttons. I can also retract the sword again by pressing the trigger. I'll go ahead and show you another thing that's really neat. If you have magic equipped, you can use the conduit mod to simply grab your weapon, and you can enchant it, which is really cool. I'll go ahead and reholster this, and I can reach behind my back and grab my bow. I have a scoped bow. I can go ahead and aim right down the sight. I can also reach behind my back and grab another arrow. And it feels very immersive in VR. And when I get done, I can again reach behind my back and reholster my bow right behind me. Also, if I hold down the grip buttons on my controllers, we have spell wheel. that we can use for, grabbing, items. I can also, use potions just by, reaching for them, in my menu. And then you can hold them up to your face, and you can use them just using your VR controllers, which is really cool. You can also grab your pickaxe, and say you're in a mine, you can just swing your pickaxe to mine ore, using your motion controllers, which I think is really neat. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my sword again. I'll show you another cool thing.
Blessings,
We
madame.
can
Are you looking for something to read?
select our lightning spell, and we can give our sword a really cool enchanted lightning effect, which I just think looks amazing in VR. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and reholster this again. I'll walk forward using the Higgs mod. Our hands function like gravity gloves, so I can go ahead, reach forward, and I can grab this goblet just by flicking my wrist towards me, and I can interact with it just like I'm playing Half-Life Alyx. Finally, if I go behind the counter here using the plank mod, I can grab our librarian friend here. I can grab him by the shoulder, and if I try to walk backwards, he'll walk with us, or he'll lean back, I should say. Let me grab him by the arm here. Alright, there we go, and now he's walking with us. I think I just made him angry. Alright, well, that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to show you in this video tutorial. I hope you found it useful in getting Enderal VR set up and configured. If you have any other questions, you can find me in the official Enderal VR Discord channel or the Flat to VR channel on Discord.